Okay, so I'm guessing by this point everyone knows that Charlie Kirk was brutally, horrifically, violently murdered today. I was trying to understand, okay, why is this upsetting me so much? I don't have a relationship with this person, and obviously death is terrible, but this felt so personal and close to me. And I think for bordering on millions of people are feeling the same way. So why? If you don't know this person. And it took me back to 2016, where I was going through a lot personally and politically. I was so lost as to what to believe. I had tons of family who had gone, left or were starting to go radical left. And that was, the cool thing, the social justice thing. That's what you did if you, if you were a nice person, or if you weren't racist, right? If you believed that women had worth, you went radical left. And people I loved and looked up to and wanted the respect of were all going left when Trump started running. And I was in the gaming culture, the gaming community. And we know that that is a godless, horrible, dark, miserable place to be, but that's where I was. I was this close to starting to get sleeve tattoos, lots of piercings, and while I wasn't acting promiscuous, I know that had I stayed on that path, that's where I was going to head. It's just this godless place searching for man's approval. And then I started getting videos suggested to me by friends on Twitter, gaming friends, who were like, look at this idiot, look at this misogynistic white male jerk. And I would watch it and go like, oh yeah, look at him and the token black woman with him, right? Candace Owens. But their arguments and the way they were debating was really interesting. I couldn't believe that their whole shtick was having discussion with people who disagreed with them. I thought that's so interesting. You don't see that on Fox or CNN. I had never seen that before. And you realize that he's so confident. She, Candace Owens too, the two of them were so confident in truth and what they were standing for. And they spoke it so plainly. It didn't feel theatrical. It didn't even feel mocking until people started being really disrespectful to them. They felt warm and down to earth and balanced, reasonable, intelligent people. And Candace Owens was beautiful, and Charlie Kirk in my 19-year-old brain was kind of cute. And I was like, this is interesting. I've never seen something like this, where these people seem happy and they're engaging with dissenters constantly. That's their whole thing. And so I stuck around. I kept watching. And people would ask questions and I would think, oh, I've heard that before. Yeah, what's he going to say? And he'd respond in a calm, logical, fact-based manner. And even though I tend to be a very emotional person, I also care a lot about, deeply care about truth. And he was just so confident in talking about what is truth. And it was always based in Christianity and logic. And I stuck around for him, and that led me to Matt Walsh, right? And who still had such a huge influence on me, including, wanting to go into the Catholic Church. And then I am a consistent fan of Candace Owens, and then Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. And these people took me from the path of radical leftism and feminism and turned me towards good, Christianity, tradition, family, God. And I couldn't believe that you could have all of that, the things that our parents had, that my parents had, but so much of my family had rejected. You could have that and be joyful and intelligent and put together and kind. The way they stood up for life and the dignity of life, that's based in Christianity. The idea that we are all, not just the wealthy, not just the intelligent, not just the born and the unborn, but all of us are created in God's image. And Charlie Kirk really pushed that, the dignity of man, all the time in his arguments. And it's something I believed in. I even when I was more liberal and progressive, I couldn't wrap my mind around the idea of having an abortion because your child has Down syndrome. I thought they have just as much value as I do. And that's where he argued from, was truth and love from Christianity's point of view, which is radical, right? The idea that all people have dignity. That completely transformed my life. Starting with Turning Point USA, I realized that there was another way for my life. And so I went from gaming culture, wanting to become a streaming girl. And by the way, we all know what the streaming streamlines into, right? How that works out for women. I went from that aspiration to my husband, who's an angel, a hard worker, a provider, level-headed, great man, and to Christianity and biblical Christianity and traditional Christianity, to Catholicism, to having my 2 children and being a stay-at-home mom. My aspirations were being a lawyer or a film director. You never would have been able to convince me that being a stay-at-home mom had value and was worthy of being chosen over work and making money and using my brain in that way. But it was through the values of Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and the things he was pushing in his early 20s that saved me from a life of misery and loneliness. And this is why Charlie? Why Charlie Kirk? All he does is want conversations with people who disagree. All he wants is the discussion, which is amazing. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like no one is going out anymore in public since Trump got shot. I'm not seeing a whole lot of conservative talks anymore, but Charlie was still doing it. He had a whole tour planned. Why would you kill him? It's like, okay, I'm starting to realize today was extremely eye-opening for me. And God has been preparing me for this, showing me that this is where things were headed. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. This is good versus evil. Charlie was just good, just a good man with truth and who believed in love and dignity of all human life, born and unborn. And he was murdered violently today because evil hates good. It hates what is right, what is true. And if you're a Christian, the way Charlie was, Charlie shared all about the gospel to this group of, you can assume, a lot of Mormons in that Utah student body. 7,000 people signed a petition trying to keep him from speaking today. And he was sharing the gospel as a Christian who just loves Jesus so much. And the shooter saw him do that. The shooter was sitting there, saw him share the gospel, and moments later killed him. That's the definition of a martyr. And it's because evil hates what's good. This isn't politics anymore. It's just right and wrong, true and untrue, good and evil. And it's penetrated our families, our politics, our culture, our communities. But we have to choose what we're going to stand for. And you might literally lose your life for it. Of all the people, Charlie Kirk, really? This guy, this husband, father of 2, 30 years old, going out into the college campuses where people were screaming to not let him in. Thousands of people opposing him openly. You go on Reddit and Twitter and people are celebrating TikTok. They're celebrating his death. And this has been this was on its way, right? When the billionaire CEO guy was murdered, I knew people they're not really in my circle anymore, but celebrating that, right? And they're celebrating this death or mocking it. They think it's funny, or who cares, right? Who cares? But human life matters. That is a Christian objective truth. And evil does not believe in the dignity of life. That's why 1 in 3 women, I think, are aborting their babies. That's why we celebrate that. It's good to kill your baby for yourself. That's evil. And Charlie was just going right into the lion's den to just talk to young people like me. Charlie Kirk, quite literally, saved my life. He is why he was this catalyst. He began that Turning Point USA, right? He began that change for me. In a sea of emotion and manipulation and misery, I was able to have some light come in and start seeing what is true and good and right. And that I have my family now. If you had looked at me with my pink and purple hair in 2016, you would have never thought. And God used other things and other people like Matt Walsh to help me along the way. But Charlie Kirk played a huge role in that. And I'm just forever grateful. So his life was taken today, but I was able to realize that he helped save mine. God help us. I don't think there's anything else to say.